Today, we are going on one heck of a journey. I mean, it's a trip that starts hundreds of millions of years in the past, travels miles under the ground, and winds up in basically everything that surrounds us. We're going to follow a single drop of oil from way back in its prehistoric days all the way to its final form as a resource that, let's be honest, fuels and builds our entire modern world. So, let's get started.
Okay, so here's a riddle for you. You've got your car that gets you round, the shirt on your back, if it's synthetic, that is, and the phone that's probably in your hand right now. I mean, they seem like they're from completely different worlds, right? Transportation, fashion, technology, but believe it or not, they all share a common ancestor, a single starting point that's crucial for their very existence.
And the answer is oil. Yup, that raw, unrefined black stuff. Crude oil and the hydrocarbons that make it up. This liquid, formed from the remnants of ancient life, is the starting material for a truly staggering number of products. And the process of turning this stuff from a geological blob into the building blocks of our society? Well, it's one of the most complex and, frankly, fascinating industrial stories on the entire planet. So, our journey kicks off deep, deep underground. Now, you can't just start digging anywhere and hope to strike it rich. It's not like there's a giant lake of oil down there. Nope, it's trapped in very specific rock formations that took an almost unbelievable amount of time, pressure, and just the right ancient ingredients to cook up. This first leg of our trip is all about geology and time, on a scale that's kind of hard to wrap your head around.
You know what, that analogy of a pressurized rocky sponge is probably the best way to picture an oil reservoir. It's not some big, empty cave filled with liquid. The oil is actually trapped inside millions of tiny interconnected pores in rocks like sandstone. So imagine soaking a sponge in water. Now just imagine that sponge is a mile of solid rock and the water is crude oil. Oh, and it's all under crushing pressure from all the layers of ores piled on top of it. And for it to even exist, there has to be a lid, a layer of non-porous rock that acts like a seal, trapping the oil and gas. Without that cap rock, all this valuable stuff would have just leaked to the surface millions of years ago.
The way this stuff is made is just extraordinary. We're talking about a timeline that covers entire geological eras. It all starts hundreds of millions of years ago, back when oceans were full of tiny plants and animals. When they died, they sank to the bottom and got buried under layers and layers of sediment. As those layers built up, the heat and pressure basically cooked all that organic gunk, slowly turning it into crude oil and natural gas. And you can see how the age really changes the final product. The oldest stuff got cooked the longest, breaking it down into the smallest molecules, which is why you often find natural gas there. The younger stuff didn't have as much time in the pressure cooker, so you end up with heavier, thicker crude oil. Really, every drop of oil is like a little time capsule of ancient sunlight, captured by life eons ago and stored for us to find. Okay, so we know how oil is made, but finding it and then getting it out of that pressurized rocky sponge, that is a whole different ballgame. This is where geology smacks right into massive scale engineering. It is a high-stakes, incredibly expensive hunt that pushes technology to its absolute limits to pull a resource out of the ground that might be kilometers beneath our feet, sometimes even under the ocean. Before you can even think about drilling, you need a map. But how do you map something that's buried under miles of solid rock? The answer is sound. With seismic surveys, geologists use these powerful transmitters to send sound waves deep into the earth. Those waves bounce off the different rock layers, and a bunch of sensors on the surface listen for the echo. By analyzing how long it takes for those waves to come back, they can build a surprisingly detailed 3D picture of what's down there. They're looking for those special trap formations where oil is likely to be. It's basically a form of geological ultrasound, giving them the treasure map they need to decide where to drill. And the sheer scale of this operation is just immense. Once they find a promising spot, the rig moves in. That tall, crisscrossing tower you always see, that's the derrick. Its main job is to support the enormous weight of the drill string, which is just section after section of pipe screwed together and all the machinery that makes it spin. It doesn't matter if it's on land or on a giant platform in the middle of the sea, the derrick is the backbone of the whole drilling process. Now let's zoom in, way down to the business end of this whole setup. This is the part that does all the hard work. At the very tip of that kilometers-long string of pipe is the drill bit. And these are not the kind of drill bits you have in your garage. These things are marvels of material science, designed to just crush and grind through solid rock for days straight. Some have hardened steel cones, others are literally embedded with industrial diamonds, one of the hardest things on Earth. As this bit spins, it just pulverizes the rock, clearing a path deeper and deeper. And this is why that seismic mapping we just talked about is so unbelievably important. The cost of drilling is just staggering. A single exploratory well offshore can easily cost $30 million. And honestly, that's on the low end. It can be much, much more. And here's the kicker. There is absolutely no guarantee of success. Even with the best data, maybe 1 in 10 of those expensive holes in the ground actually turns out to be a commercially viable find. It's an immense financial gamble, which is why these companies spend so much time and money analyzing everything before they even start to drill.
Now, drilling isn't all the same. On the left, you've got a pretty typical onshore rig. It's a complex machine for sure, and you'll see them all over places like the shale fields in North America. But the whole challenge gets way bigger when you move offshore. An offshore platform isn't just a rig, it's a self-contained industrial city. It has to be able to ride out massive storms, house hundreds of workers for weeks at a time, make its own electricity, and do all the drilling and processing, all while floating in the middle of the ocean, sometimes hundreds of kilometers from the nearest land.
Over the last couple of decades, a technology called hydraulic fracturing, you probably know it as fracking, has become a real game changer, especially for onshore drilling. It's designed to solve a really specific problem. See, some rock, like shale, is full of oil and gas, but the rock itself isn't porous enough to let it flow out. So what they do is pump a special fluid, it's mostly just water and sand, down the well at an incredibly high pressure. We're talking over 10,000 psi. That pressure is strong enough to create tiny little cracks in the rock. Then, the sand in the mixture acts like tiny props to hold those fractures open, creating pathways for all that trapped oil and gas to finally escape and flow up the well.
So, we've drilled the well, the hydrocarbons are finally flowing up to the surface. We're done, right? Well, not even close. What comes out of the ground is not the refined fuel you put in your car. It's not even pure crude oil. It's a raw, messy mix of stuff that has to get sorted out before it can go any further. This is the first crucial processing step.
Okay, this is a really important point. Crude oil isn't just one thing. It's totally different depending on where in the world it came from. The two big ways to classify it are its weight, is it light or heavy, and its sweetness, is it sweet or sour? The weight is measured on a scale called API gravity. A simple way to think about it is that lighter oil is less dense, easier to process, and gives you more of the good stuff, like gasoline, so it's more valuable. Then you have sweet versus sour. That's all about how much sulfur is in it. Sweet crude has very little sulfur, making it easy to refine. Sour crude has a lot, which makes it corrosive and means it needs extra treatment, which costs more money. So the perfect crude oil is light and sweet. And all these differences really just come down to the molecules. See, crude oil is a jumble of hydrocarbon molecules of all different sizes. Light crude has lots of smaller, simpler molecules. Heavy crude is packed with bigger, more complex ones. A refinery is basically set up to break down or build up these molecules to create specific products. And a medium crude often hits that sweet spot, giving refiners the best mix of molecules to maximize things like gasoline and diesel fuel.
So that stuff coming up the pipe from the reservoir is this pressurized, frothy mess of oil, gas, water, and even sand. The very first thing that has to happen right there at the well site is for this mixture to go into a separator. It's basically a big tank where the pressure's lowered and gravity does the work. Gas bubbles up to the top, water and sand sink to the bottom, and the crude oil floats right there in the middle. This first separation is absolutely essential to get the oil stable enough to transport and ready for the next, much more complicated part of its journey.
All right, our crude oil has been found, drilled, and separated from all the water and gas it came up with. It's been shipped by pipeline or tanker to its final destination, the refinery. This is where the real magic happens. This is where that raw material finally begins its transformation into the products we use every single day. The best way to think of a refinery is as a massive, super complex factory that doesn't build things up, but instead takes one thing, crude oil, and sorts it into hundreds of different components. At the heart of every single refinery is a process called fractional distillation, and it works on a really simple principle. Different liquids boil at different temperatures. So first, the crude oil is heated up to be super hot, a mix of liquid and vapor. This hot goo is pumped into the bottom of a huge, tall tower called a distillation column. Inside, it's scorching hot at the bottom and gets cooler and cooler the higher you go. As those hot vapors rise, they start to cool down. Different types of hydrocarbons turn back into liquid at different temperatures, which means they condense at different heights inside the column. There are trays at all these different levels to collect the various liquids, which effectively sorts the entire batch of crude oil by the size of its molecules. And this sorting process is what lets us pull out the specific fractions that become the products we all know. Way up at the top of the column, where it's coolest, you collect the fractions with the lowest boiling points, like naphtha. Those are the key ingredients for gasoline. A little further down, you get kerosene, which becomes jet fuel.
Keep going, and you get diesel. Even further down, you get the heavier stuff, like lubricating oils for engines. And what's left at the very, very bottom, the thickest, gooeyest stuff with the highest boiling point, that's the residue that becomes heavy fuel oil for ships or the asphalt we use to pave our roads. It's an incredibly clever way to sort a really complex mixture.
And this, for me, is the most surprising part of the whole journey. The refinery doesn't just make fuel for our cars and planes. Those hydrocarbon fractions are also the fundamental building blocks for the entire petrochemical industry. So that same drop of oil that started as an ancient sea creature isn't just powering your car. It's the starting point for the plastics in your phone, the fertilizers that grow our food, the detergents we clean with, and the synthetic fibers in our clothes. It is literally woven into the fabric of the modern world.
So there you have it. We've followed the journey from a 300-million-year-old organism to the fuel in a jet engine and the plastic in a computer keyboard. It's a story of geology, engineering, and chemistry on a truly epic scale. It's a system that has, without a doubt, shaped the last century and continues to power our world today. And understanding this massive, complex journey really makes us ask the big question: what's going to power our world for the next 100 years?